Salams, peace, hi. Today I'm joined by a dear friend in the US, someone that I've been connecting with for the past year or even more. Someone who I've had many lovely conversations with over WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, and we've come together in various coaching contexts as well. And I'm really pleased to introduce Maryam Qadri. Maryam is a sociologist by training or by degree and a Sufi in training. She's a writer, a content creator, and co-founder of Essential Spirituality. Her newest release is a book titled Mystical Garden, a collection of Sufi poetry and prose. It's such a delight to have you here today, Maryam.
Thank you, Rose. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, thank you. So let's dive right in. The first question I ask all my guests, and I'm always curious to see the origin of people's path. So can you remember when you were however old, when you first started getting interested in spirituality and or the healing path in your life? So this might be together or separate, depending on your own context.
Right. So mine would be I would treat this separately. So I would say I would relate a spiritual experience I had kind of like as a kid without understanding it. So like when I was maybe in high school, I attended my Aunt Sherry's wedding. And my grandma Moo was very close to everyone in the family, and she had passed on. And it was a beautiful outdoor wedding in Oregon. And there's this moment where it's like I was in a trance, and I saw my grandmother, but she was holding the hand of a little girl, and I didn't recognize the little girl. And then it ended, and I was back in the wedding. Mm-hmm. And I found it really weird, because I never had any kind of such experiences. And so I shared it that evening with my aunts and everyone. And my Aunt Lenny was keen on it because she said, she asked more and more about the little girl. And I said, I don't know. It's just like a little girl. It's like a sweet little girl. And my Aunt Lenny had had a miscarriage, and it was a little girl. And so for her, that like, if she felt like that her child was there with her mother, mm-hmm. And it was very beautiful. So that was like that. So I had I would have this kind of experience, but religiously spiritually, I had no, I was like the black sheep and the outcast because I got it, but I got it so well that I couldn't accept it. Mm. And I was a bit of an oddity and an oddball. So I was such a rebel against it. I didn't feel called to spirituality or religion. And then in college, I met someone who I thought was the love of my life. And I thought that's what God wanted for me. Mm. And it was the first time I had this feeling like this is God's will. And oh my God. And it didn't work out. And it was a blessing that it didn't work out. But when it didn't work out, it got me really thinking. And it got me thinking, well, what is God's will? What is spirituality? And at the same time, I met the man who would end up being my husband. And so he and I also met at that same time. And he would talk about spirituality to me, and that he would talk about it in ways that like some of it I understood and some of it I was like, I don't know. And so I would start reading the Gita, like I read it twice. And
as in the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu scriptures, yeah.
Yes, and I loved it. I just loved it. And in high school, I came across the Siddhartha Gautama and his biography, and I love that idea that we're preoccupied, transcendentalist literature. So this was how I was starting to identify religion. Spirituality to me it's something transcendent. It's something related to nature. It's something higher spiritual, and not necessarily in the trappings that I was familiar with. And then healing. I had my first healing session without recognizing it when I had the breakup, because I met a philosophical counselor. I read Plato, not Prozac. And so back then, we didn't have you have to get calling cards back then. So I emailed the author and I said, this is what I'm going through. I'm stuck on the Four Noble Truths. And he was kind enough. He's like, if you can get a calling card, I'll have an hour-long session with you. And so he worked me through the step I was stuck on. And yeah, it was really helpful. It was really helpful because, I was like the point where you don't understand what the cause, suffering as a cause. And I was like, so I was stuck there. I was like, I understand that I'm heartbroken, but why am I still suffering? And he's like, and then he started probing, and I realized I was still involved in an outdoor program where I was seeing the person and interacting with the person who was the source of, I guess the pain can come from me, but like that person and that wasn't there. So then I realized I had to step away from that to heal from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sounds really intriguing, and I'm curious to hear more about this and what came after that. So I know, and from our past conversations, you've been on a very interesting, and eclectic spiritual journey with yourself and your family. Could you describe the spiritual path you're on?
Right. So my spiritual path went from being born into a Protestant Christian family to becoming a Qadri in the Qadri order of Sufis, and then a very staunch Sunni to the best of my ability, and then having a crisis of faith with that, and then joining the Anayati order, and getting to explore Anayati Sufism, and then now going through essential spirituality, which is what I'm doing with the platform where my husband and I co-created. So I would say it's fluid. It's fluid and inclusive, and it's always about growth and adaptation. I feel that the only thing that's common in all of it is that I'm seeking the truth, and that I'm seeking ultimate reality, and I'm not hung up on how that has to form, but I am hung up on, following my heart and doing what I feel is correct in that.
Mhm. How do you know what is
How do you?
correct
It's a
in that?
great question. So when I met Prose, I actually asked him a question.
Can you tell us more about who that is for listeners who have
Yeah.
never heard
So
of him? Yeah.
Prose Anayat is the president of the Anayati order,
Mhm.
and I got to meet him at the abode of the message. And when I met him, I was so
In
broken.
New York, correct?
And I was so broken because my husband and I had kind of like a crisis of faith, and that partially dealt with lots of living dynamics and the pressures of certain people and things like that. So Babaji's guidance to me right before he died was, it doesn't matter. And what doesn't matter? So it doesn't matter related to my husband. Really, he was so mistreated on a level. Like he could not be Muslim enough for certain people. And they were so particular about what Islam ought to be or should be that he just kind of like needed to shut it all down. And so that was really hard for me because I was aware of all the rules related to Sunni Islam and what that means for a Muslim woman. And it was, so I was torn. And we have pictures of Sri Krishna in our home, which may shock people. And some like Muslim listeners may find that offensive or hard to accept, some, not all. And so I was really distressed myself at that time because I was so much into my new identity, this identity that I had become. And I remember I saw the picture of Krishna one night, and I think I might have been crying, but I heard a voice, and it was a verse from the Quran, and it said, "Wheresoever you turn, there is the face of your Lord." And then when we called Babaji about it, because Babaji always gave us very sound advice, and Babaji said it doesn't matter. And I was like, how can it not matter? Like, you put me on this path. Like, what are you doing? And what I was speaking just a few days ago with my husband, what I concluded is it's about unity and love. Those are the principles that matter. And we're universalists. So when we believe in Allah, but we see that, like the Quran says, like, your Allah and our Allah is one. It sounds really funny. And if you say it like that, but it's like your God and our God is one God, say that. But there aren't two Allahs. So we believe that ultimately there's one reality. And so how do you know you're going astray or not? Pizia told me to stay with the practices. And I agree with that. Because I think the practices are grounding, and the practices can be a source, like more than any other teaching, the practices keep you grounded. And then I would add to that is that what I learned from Babaji is that it's about unity and love. So when things start to feel like really uncomfortable, hard, unnatural, when they feel like you just can't, like I felt it was like an edifice I couldn't hold up. And it was crushing me, and it was crushing what I loved and everything I loved. And I was like, this can't be this can't be right. So and that's hard to let these things go. It's hard to let the identities go that people, it's hard to destroy yourself. It's like shattering yourself, which is what Hazrat Naikan said, shatter yourself on the rock of truth. And so I think that's how, but I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it by choice, but I think life will provide you the opportunity.
Shatter yourself on the rock of truth. Can you elaborate on that more? I'm so curious, like what your teacher meant and how you interpret that. What does it mean to shatter yourself?
Yeah. So since Hazrat Naikan said it, it's like a quote from him. So I always understood it as like we often erect false identities, false gods.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get so wrapped up in and we don't, and it's actually our ego. And so instead of just shattering our ego and coming to the fullness of this reality, which is ultimate, which is God, we protect something so narrow and small, which is a little conception of God or ourselves, and it's so limiting. So I think the shattering means every time you see yourself becoming hard and becoming like fixated on this is me, this is whatever, see the qualities it produces, see what happens. And if it hurts, I find it hurts. And so it will shatter, it will implode itself, or something will implode it. And so, and that something is truth. And that truth is truth. Like, it's a controversial word people say now, but I think truth it doesn't have to be controversial. I think it becomes self-evident. And when it's self-evident, you don't really need to argue with it. It's just something intuitive.
Yeah.
Did that help?
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm always interested to hear how people interpret and understand spirituality, how they understand these kind of larger concepts in similar and also different ways. And I think that's really important. That's the point of this podcast, right? Is to show the multiplicity of interpretations of understanding what it means to be a believer and worshiper of the divine, for example. So I definitely
Right.
appreciate you sharing that. So I know apart from your spiritual path, you've also been on this healing journey, as many of us are, and that's how we
Yeah.
connected. Which healing modalities have you tried, and which ones resonated with you the most?
Well, I like a shotgun approach. I've tried many, and I do prefer it because when I had like a mental health crisis back in 2017, and I was very depressed, and I was very fearful. I'm still fearful, but I was super fearful, like super fearful, insecure, and very depressed. And so I just started first. So everyone around me, because I'm in a hyper spiritual family, everyone's like, do more spiritual practice, do more. I'm like, I don't think this is spiritual, but I took everyone's advice. Like everyone who told me to do this or that practice, I did this or that practice.
Like what kind of practices were they suggesting?
Like some were like wazifa, some were like,
for people who don't know what that is, can you explain?
that's like a chant, one of the divine names, or it could be a Quranic verse or a divine name or something, or usually something like that.
For Sufi, usually for Sufi members, yeah.
Right. And then others would suggest maybe like an auto suggestion where you give a positive affirmation and things like that. Certain things like that. Charity. People I am given. But it, so I knew that it was something else. It was in my head, and in my head, I had just really gotten so caught up there. So I went to an ACT therapist, which is acceptance commitment therapy. But since our insurance didn't cover, so it was hard to pay out of pocket, but it was nice meeting her, because I thought I was going crazy. Legitimately, I was so much up in my head. And she said, no. It was really a nice moment. So I was like, okay, so I read You Are Not Your Brain. I read like 5 different books, like The End of Fear. Oh, I read them cover to go, feeling good, wrote like extensive notes. And when I read, I apply. So bibliotherapy is a modality of healing that I love and I use.
Wow.
And I love it. And I find like now today, but that's because of the earlier work with all these other like positive psychology and especially cognitive behavioral therapy. So I'm a huge advocate of cognitive behavioral therapy because even if you don't have any like we all typically have distorted thoughts and a negativity bias that most of us can be prone to. Yeah. And so learning a little bit of cognitive behavioral theory really, I find, is so beneficial because you're like, wait, that's a should statement, or, or like this, I'm catastrophizing. It's just helpful. I think it's really helpful. And so journaling, I started journaling in 2017. I sat with my daughter and I showed her all my journals. Like we went through all my journals. I can't go all of them because some of them I put.
As in from childhood, you mean, or
oh no, just from 2017 as an adult.
Okay.
Yeah, I kept a few journals as a kid, but not like I didn't keep them. I had one and then I fought against it. But like but like in 2017 on, I've been journaling almost every day. I journal almost every day. And I write down 3 things about my husband in particular. I focus on him. So 3 things about him that I specifically am appreciative for or find value. And then I write down like 6 most important things. Mary Kay Ash. Okay. For people who don't know Mary Kay Ash, she's more than a makeup person. She was an extremely powerful, positive businesswoman. So I read her biography and it was so positive. So she had her 6 most important things. So I make a list of that. And then I write down any thoughts. So if I'm having an automatic thought that's distressing me, what is it? What's the cognitive distortion? What's the rational response? So what's am I labeling here? Am I jumping to conclusions? Okay, let's be factual.
Yeah.
So, but all that's helped. I don't know. I went to a deep trauma masterclass, and that was very helpful. I've tried Louise Hay. I would recommend her writing and work. I used her mirror work and her affirmations. I still have, I have right here, you're in the process of healing. She had these little cards.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I adopted as much as I could and everything that worked. And again, I did, after I left the last Sufi order I was in, I went through therapy again for a month on, and I worked one-on-one with a person. I met her every week and we talked about a lot of things, and it was very helpful. So I'm very good with recommending therapy and that. And I have a very good friend named Chrissy that I love. And she and I, we can talk about anything. So she and I would exchange emails and talk and like, we both have an interest in this. So we did a Pima Chandran class online together through Udemy, and we'd have discussions about it. And it's just very nice. So a lot of things.
Yeah, clearly you seek out solutions when you're having challenges in your life.
Right.
Clearly. And actually, I was going to ask that kind of transitions nicely into the next question is, we have all had challenges, some of us are willing to share them. Some of us, are more private, and whatever you're willing to share with us in terms of challenges, you've shared a couple already with your family. Which challenges have you encountered along the way, and how have you worked through them?
Right.
Because a lot of people out there who are on the spiritual healing path, sometimes they hit a wall, they get blocked, and I think it's useful for them to hear what other people do.
Okay. So I guess I'm going to unpack that in lots of stages. So one is some context. I still live in a joint family, like very close to a joint family, but so when you live in a joint family, it's a little different dynamic than a nuclear family, because all the relatives have a position and a say, you could say. And I was the youngest person in the family. So, and if it's a South Asian family, you must understand that there's like a hierarchy. And in a good South Asian family, like, people don't lord that over you, but there can be members who maybe do not have, they have their own, like, I read a quote Louise Hay said, we're all victims of victims. So somebody could actually have their own healing issues they need to work on in the family, but they're not doing the inner work and they're not acknowledging that. Yeah. And that one person can actually really disturb the whole ship and upset other people. And then usually that person has an enabler who helps that individual. And then, so what I would say is to help me with the dynamic. So I love my husband's family. So I'm going to make that very clear. I just adore them. They're all wonderful. And so I'm make that clear. So I just love them. Okay. And so one of the people who's helped me throughout has been his older sister. His older sister is like just an amazing person. And then, but I read, what is it? 7 Habits of Highly Successful Families or something like that. And then I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. I read books on toxic in-laws. I read all these books and started to apply whatever they were teaching to try to understand the situation. Yeah. And that helped me through that challenge. And then the other challenge with that is
can we pause there for a moment? Yeah. I'm just so curious. So you use bibliotherapy, which is such an awesome term. I've not heard that term. I'm going to start using that because I think I do bibliotherapy to some degree as well. You use bibliotherapy to work through very intense family dynamics, joint family dynamics. And how did you actually do that?
Well, I would read the book, and then if it had a principle or an idea, I would apply it. So I think it's Stephen Covey's books. He talks a lot about you have to kind of learn to listen and see it from the other person's and the emotional bank account. So when he talked about the emotional bank account, I bet, okay, am I making posits or withdrawals? And then you have to understand from the other person's perspective, what is a deposit or a withdrawal to this person, right? And if you have someone with very high exacting standards, and it's like it's a real balance. But once you then so an idea like that, then I would learn, okay, this is what this person values. This is what, so they really appreciate it if you cook them really good food, or they really appreciate it if you sit with them for a long time, or they really like whatever it is that they value. You learn to try to make those deposits, and whatever it is that they're offended by or sensitive to, you don't want to make those debits. Now, with most people, like most good-natured people, this is, I consider, fairly easy and natural. But when you're dealing with a challenging individual, it can be it's more demanding. And so even if you're doing your best, it will never be good enough for some people. And then that's another challenge, which I'll get to further. So then there's the dynamic of everybody wants you to be a particular way, or maybe some people want you to be a particular way. So you kind of have these pressures, and you have to find for yourself what is authentic for you. So one thing I did with Islam is I had to learn to separate their Islam. That's their Islam. That is not my Islam. And I reject, if that's Islam, I reject that, and I won't follow that, because I do not think that's authentic, and I think it's harmful. And then I found what was authentic to me, what I felt was a true expression of Islam and authentic to me. So I had to actually reclaim my faith at one point.
Can you expand upon like what you saw in their Islam that just didn't work with you?
And I think you see this sometimes in people who get into Sufism, but also I think you can get it with the mainstream, is that when people feel that like they're really hung up on halal and haram to the point of being rude to other people about it, or they think that only their understanding of it is correct, whereas there's a vast difference of opinion about, like in the Arab world, typically it's much more liberal or easy about that. Like food from people of the book is considered lawful in America by most Arab, but not all, but there are a number of Arab scholars. In South Asia, they often take a more stricter view, and they're like, no, don't eat it. My peer was beautiful. Like he just said avoid alcohol and pork. That's all he gave me. But we didn't follow that because we were living in a system where other people didn't want, they had like this ultra strict standard. So we thought, okay, well, and that made it harder even for my family. So you get this idea of manners. So where you see people, I've seen this where people want to teach other people manners, but they actually don't have them themselves. And their idea of teaching people manners is to be mean and unkind to them until they behave in the way they want. That's not manners. That's just wrong. Yeah. So like there's a lot of things that can go on like that. Just like, harassing people about what they read or what they can and can't read, other examples. You see that they're overly interested when they're so outward focused that they're completely interested in another person's, like they're like the men especially do this, preoccupied with how the women are dressing, what the women are doing, but they're not, like they're talking freely with any woman they want, but they're literally obsessed is the word with where they sit, how they talk, who they talk. That is it's just really obnoxious. So like, but the biggest thing was that I saw in Islam that was just very controlling, and I felt it was very and not for the right reasons. I didn't feel it was for the right reasons, even though I'm sure from that person's point of view, from maybe their point of view, they really sincerely thought that they were doing the right thing, which is, I understand, like we all come from. So there's no judgment in that. But what happens is it's. And actually, God bless the person. One of the two people, anyways, they sincerely apologized, and like they were, because like I said, like when a person has a growth mindset, when they're caring, when their ultimate principle is love, and they don't mean, like if they're making a mistake, at some point they'll realize it, and they will really admit it, and they'll apologize, and they'll make it right with you. They'll do everything they can to make it right with you, and so I've experienced that a lot with some very good people, and then I've met people who don't have that. When people who don't have those qualities are few, but when you meet them, I suggest leaving, because you cannot salvage that. Yeah. So, and I've only met a few people like that, but I have had to create with a few people in my life. I've had to create a complete separation because They never acknowledge they're wrong.
Mhm.
They can behave in any way they want with you, but you better not put one toe out of line, and then their ability to perceive reality is often quite distorted.
Mm.
So they will distort your interactions, your everything, and not just with you, with lots of people, because they are living and they are in a like below the veil of consciousness, is something Lisa A. Ramona likes to say. Breakthrough Life Coach. I highly recommend her podcast. She has a YouTube channel. But like, so one of the challenges I went through is we went through this, and none of us had dealt with the person with these qualities, because it's kind of, I don't think people are saying this is becoming more common, but I do find it kind of rare in my experience. So, but when you have a challenge like that, I think you have to educate yourself, like find out about it. So one thing I had to learn about, like in 2019, I had to learn about narcissism and narcissistic abuse. And I spent like, and then it just like opened up all these doors to understanding. And then it literally is, if you meet someone who falls into that, they will behave in a textbook manner. Mm-hmm. And then the different coaches, therapists will give you different strategies, because it depends on the level of your relationship, because not everybody can just leave a situation. So it's just, but in whatever way you can protect yourself and create that space, you should, because like we found that you just flourish afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I love what you're talking about really is the importance of enforcing and maintaining boundaries, as well as the convergence of mental health, spirituality, and religion, which often isn't talked about, right? Because we often think about there's Muslims who are open-minded, liberal, conservative, we're throwing on lots of labels, but really what we have is the people who are good, no matter, how practicing or open-minded they are. Good people are good people. And people who are able to balance and regulate their nervous system, who have good adab or good character, right? It's universal. It doesn't matter like the level of their practice. And so what you're really talking about is the need for more mental health support in the Muslim and other spiritual communities, right? Which unfortunately goes unspoken about in many contexts. Apart from the past few years, it started to become more of an issue, but it's very recent. Right. And people use religion when really what they need is a therapist, right? And they abuse religion, they abuse others in the name of religion, when again, a therapist, some kind of healing modality will be a lot more practical and useful in this situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's useful to hear, how someone like you who has encountered these individuals who have abused you and kind of shown or dismissed you because of your different religiosity in the name of religion, how you've dealt with that. So I think that's good for people to hear. What's in your toolbox, Maryam? So you gave us a little bit, but let's say, you're experiencing some anxiety, if any depression pops up, if you're just stressed, what do you do? What's your go-to tools?
My tool. So one of my number one tools would be to journal when I'm feeling like that. Another tool, and this has been a recent one since I took up interest in the Quran. So since 2019, I took up an interest in the Quran. But what I find is when I read the Quran, it makes me happy. It just does. It's a nice feeling. And so even when I'm sad, or like I was really quite sad for 2 days with my foot, it was like my foot's injured, and so it made me like I couldn't move, and I was feeling like, oh my God. So so then I would read the Quran, and immediately it just does something to me that makes me feel good. And then usually the way I'm experiencing the Quran is that wherever I'm at in it is where I'm at in my life, which is very nice. And then my husband is my unofficial therapist, and he keeps teasing me that I should charge him, but he's taken a course on like mediation, and he studied himself. So a lot of psychologists for like enjoyment, and he helped like his mother had some struggles. And so he always took care of her and helped her. So I talked to him, and he's just a really good sounding board for me. And then his sister, when they're not there, I walk, I run. Physical exercise is why I'm injured. Physical exercise, I cannot stress. Like for me anyways, it's like, you can't have too much of a good thing, but it's like, it takes me to another place. So running is my therapy. Like I run for the pleasure of it, and because it does something to my head, and I listen to music. Like, so when I do it, I love to listen to music, and I love pop music. and it just makes me really happy, and it gets the happy hormones flowing, it gets the energy up, you feel good, your body feels good. it made me realize that I'm a lot stronger, because I think when you're depressed and when you're down, when you're negative, you're feeling really bad about yourself. And so it helps to do things that can build you up, or just shift your perspective. And I often do these things. I can do them outdoors, which I love. And then the mirror work. I spent a lot of time, almost a year, doing the mirror work that Louise Hay. So you look into your eyes, and I say, I love and accept you exactly as you are. I love and accept you exactly as you are. And then now, as I'm older, because I'm in my 40s, so as like my fine lines, I have white hairs over here, white hairs. Like I love all of it. Like it's part of who I am. And then I learned the hadith. We're supposed to say, Alhamdulillah, just you made my outward appearance beautiful. Please beautify my character. And it's like, and you do that when you look in a mirror. So it's like, I was like, oh. Yeah. So these are mostly the things I do now, or I will go back to my book, like any of those books, like The End of Fear, or there's one about, what's that one called? It's really Intrusive Thoughts. I have to remember the title correctly, but there's one on intrusive thoughts that's really powerful, because it reminds you that your thoughts are not you. Your thoughts are just thoughts. And that we have a physiological reaction that's real, and that's why we get so confused with them. And so when you have the thought, your heart starts racing, like it sends an adrenaline, like you like feel like it's going to happen. But what happens is that's like the first, and so you learn to calm. Like I'll put my hand on my heart, and I'll learn to calm myself. Like, thank you for alerting me. I know I'm safe right now. And then it shifts. You shift your brain, and you kind of start to calm down. And I find that very, very helpful. Or sometimes I also get frustrated. Sometimes I'm like, when will I stop being afraid? And astrology, my husband does Vedic astrology, so I find it helpful in the sense that sometimes he can tell me, like, okay, I went through 7 years of Saturn. I don't recommend that to anyone. Okay. It's very, very hard on person, but he would always encourage me and say, oh, don't worry, it's getting over, you're better than, and sometimes it's kind of like helpful little nuggets that like, I don't necessarily take it seriously. Sometimes my mother does not. She won't even go near it. She's like, Uday, like not. But it is. I do find it helpful, and it can be actually dot on sometimes. So all these different things.
Thank you for sharing. I just love hearing when other women have such a deep set of tools that they can use and draw upon when necessary. I mean, this just illustrates the necessity to have quite a few tools depending on what's going on, right? You can't just depend on one or two. I love that, like the Quran makes you happy, running with pop music makes you happy, various books, bibliotherapy makes, really can support you. So it's lovely to have this large set of tools. And I really recommend most people try to create this large set of tools so that they can draw upon them, and depending on what they need, they know what to use. So that's wonderful. Question for you that just kind of came to mind. If you met your little girl self, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that she's fun. And not to worry, because I didn't have friends as a little kid except for Chester Patrick. God bless him. He's still here in my hometown. So I was a tomboy, and I didn't have, so in school that was very stigmatized. So I didn't have friends the first 6 years of elementary school, and I was held back my first year. So what happened is all my former classmates thought I was a failure, and they'd tell me that when they'd pass me. And then because I was a tomboy, I didn't do makeup, and I didn't do the thing. I never, to this day, I don't have a purse. Like I remember my best friend, Jeremy, his guy was interested in me, and he was talking to me. He's like, she doesn't carry a purse. It's like, no, she has a wallet. Like I always had a wallet. Like I just didn't understand a purse. I was like, what is the purse? Like, what is that? So I would tell her that she's fun, and that she's accepted, that she's enough, that she's accepted, and that she's fun.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. And I also don't use purses, Maryam, but that's because I have back issues. So I always carry a nice backpack.
Fun. I love
me. I can't do messenger bags even because they're uneven support weight on my shoulders, and I really need even weight. So I'm also not a purse carrying woman either, but we can still be in our divine feminine even if we don't have purses, right? and helping our backs.
Yep. I did adopt a cell phone purse, though I must confess this. When we travel, I have a cell phone purse now, but I like that when we travel. So it's like
Yeah.
smaller, and I'm like, this is all right.
Yeah. So your trajectory in religion is so interesting, going from being from quite kind of universalist Sufi communities to being a staunch a Sunni, as you call it. Tell me, where are you now and how do you relate to everyone else? It sounds like you have these really good boundaries and you've had these encounters with people. What keeps you Muslim? What delights you as in the context of Islam and Islamic spirituality?
Right. So I have maintained I think on the whole, and I have maintained relationships and contacts with everyone who has with most, even like I recently got back in touch with some of my Barelvi contacts. They reached out because we co-published books together. Like I edited for them and I helped them publish some books, and God bless them. Like they're to this day, they're very good to me. So I give them full access to my account, like, because there's just that they were always so good to me. So, and I still take Sunni classes. So I feel that for me, it's like, for me, God is one and Lord of all. So, and I would say that for Uday and I, it's the same. We see the same divinity in everyone and everything. And we see that. And no matter, like, in so much of the Sufi poetry where it talks about like the person at the idol, like one of my favorite traditions is that Hazrat Umar was beloved to Allah when he was prostrating before idols. And people say, oh, that's because he knew he would become the caliph. Well, yeah, he knew he would become the caliph, but actually Hazrat Umar, may Allah be well pleased with him, was sincere. And all of these stories in the Sufi poem, it's like sincerity. So for us, it's about sincerity. It's about seeking. It's about working on yourself, like doing the work. You know, we all have different levels, but if someone's trying, then it shows up in their life. It's about good character. So being good with people and respecting people. So we respect everyone. And then we only draw the line when the person isn't manageable, they're intolerant, they're belligerent, they're forceful. Then we can't. I read this beautiful quote by Hazrat Inayat Khan a few days ago, and it was like, he talked about the ideal, because like you said, I have like a lot of, it can be hard, and I still feel divided. Like I still have questions about this, and I've been sitting with these questions about this, is that I feel part of my heart is still so much wedded to the Sunni tradition. I like so much of that is like, so I don't think I'll ever let it go. And part of myself is 100%, then I don't feel the universal is in conflict necessarily with that. But it can be when it becomes so sectarian that it disallows. Because, for example, most any Orthodox Sunni will say that their other religions are not valid, only Islam is valid. That is the accepted position. So we don't accept that position. We believe all religions are valid. Now that, of course, puts us outside of Sunniism, and some would say outside of the pale of Islam. In fact, many people would probably argue that. But be that as it may, what I love is what Hazrat Inayat Khan said, and it's that we all have ideals, and those are our unique divine ideals, and we have to go towards that. And if we're sincere with that, and we're living that, it's not because nobody in the world is going to agree on everything. Like when I read the Quran and I'm reading passages about there are refutations to Christianity, right? Well, Christianity also refutes Islam. And I thought there's nothing wrong with that, because everybody has their own divine conception. And if the Trinity works for someone, that's fine. The Trinity didn't work for me. Intellectually, it didn't work for me. Like, so I respect my mom and love her, and I know that works for my mom, but that's not for me, right? And so I think it's the ability to recognize different views, respect those views. There are many fantastic things. I love Hinduism. There are many things that are fantastic, but I can't embrace all of it, and not all of it makes sense to me. So, but I don't need to, right? But I respect, and I think what's lacking is respect. And respect meaning, and my husband always says this, respect meaning acceptance. Not only do I respect you, but I accept that you have the right to practice the way that's true to you, and that gives you that connection with the divine. Like if you're worshiping in a way that's insincere, they say over and over again, their prayers won't count if they don't have correct belief. Your prayers don't count if you aren't sincere. That's what it's about. So that's why Surah Ikhlas, it's about sincerity. that's when our prayers count.
I mean, what you're talking about, Maryam, is pluralism, right? The concept that
Right.
you live as a Muslim who's pluralistic in accepting and acknowledging the validity of other faith traditions and communities in this world, right?
Right.
And actually, like within the Islamic tradition, it's not like most people are not going to call you and say that you're outside the pale of Islam, really, because there's so many diverse perspectives within Islam. It's just the loudest voices are the ones who claim orthodoxy, but there is
Right.
no there is no central authority within Islam, Sunni or otherwise, that can, you know, govern Islam and say what is right, what is wrong. This is part of the beauty of Islam, that there is a pluralism that's encouraged, and differences between different members of the ummah, the community, is actually encouraged, despite the fact that some within orthodoxy, so-called orthodoxy, would claim otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it was so delightful to listen to you that even my cat came to, you can't see
Oh,
her
I
because
love
she's
cat.
black
I
and
love
she
cat.
matches my shirt, but she came to listen to you as well, Maryam.
No, that's
Um,
sweet. I love cats.
yes, and she never usually comes and joins me on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
As we wrap up, Maryam,
Mm-hmm.
what pearls of wisdom would you like to share with listeners? You know, I'm thinking of people around the world listening who are thinking about spirituality and the healing, perhaps struggling with it. They often feel alone in the world. They feel that their views don't conform to the mainstream community that they might be part of. What would you want to tell them?
I would say divine wisdom guides you. Never give up your own agency or intellect.
Mm,
Trust yourself, but remain curious, always eager to learn, and have fun. It's
mm.
really about having, you have to, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's like, it should bring you joy.
I love that. We're so serious, especially those of us
Right.
who are invested in the spiritual and religious path. For many years, I was so deeply invested in that I literally forgot to have fun, and I haven't left it. In fact, I feel even deeper in the spiritual path, but fun is an essential part of that we forget. How many times do you hear a priest, a pastor, a rabbi, or imam saying, "Go have fun," you
No, you
know?
don't.
This really should be really part of the faith. Or I was listening to a podcast the other day saying joy is an essential, is like we're literally wired for joy and pleasure,
Right. Right.
but we're not encouraged to seek that out. But joy and pleasure and fun, they're all connected, and we really should be seeking those experiences out to find the beauty of this dunya, of this material world, right?
Mhm. Well, you know what I've been enjoying is that the Quran, right? The Quran calls the reason that paradise is like a pleasure paradise. If you think about the Quranic
Yeah,
depiction,
very
that's
pleasurable.
it's very pleasurable. And so it's like I was thinking about erotic poetry, like Sufi poetry is erotic because I enjoy that. And like the thing is that if someone objects to it, it's like, but the Quran itself is laden with these calls to a very attractive, very, and so it's like it's something to, I think when we lose sight of that delight, and why is that being recommended, because it's a whole body experience, and because it's something that we can definitely identify with here and then there, inshallah, like it's supposed to be more intense there, so
Yeah.
so
Well, thank you so much for sharing. This was a really beautiful conversation we've had. And if people want to find you online, can you please give us the information about how they can find you?
Right. So if you go to www.essentialspirituality.org, you can find our website. If you go to YouTube and type in Essential Spirituality, our logo is like a pretty blue and gold circle with the icons of all faiths.
Okay.
And that the YouTube channel and the website are probably the easiest. We're also on Facebook under Essential Spirituality, and on Instagram. Yeah.
Excellent. And I'll also be including that in the show notes so listeners can go to the show notes and click on those links. Thank you so much, Maryam. It's been a delight and a joy to have you on today.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Rose.